Now back to the wildfires and what was said at the Council of Ministers. A state was made. We, of course, recall the highly exceptional situation here. We've in this season we note, of course, high temperatures that can account for this drought and dry vegetation. But very often, of course, the weather factors don't help. Wind, in particular, made things more difficult. There were as many as 13,566 fires or started fires, and it's 116,000 hectares that were ravaged by the flames. Just by ways of comparison, in 2022, for the entire season, as many as 70,000 hectares were burned by the flames. Now we're looking at almost double that figure. This is highly unusual. That was noted at the Council of Ministers. Indeed, of course, the President was informed, as well as all other ministers, and there are a number of ongoing wildfires around the country, and we will look more specifically at the one raging in the Gironde area, Bordeaux area, the way in which we are addressing this fire. There's, of course, all players are involved. There's, of course, action directly on land involving not just firemen, but farmers as well. And I'd like to recognize that. But we have mobilized resources to address these fires. A few points, though. Lots of things have been said in the media. Some issues and some statements rather controversial. To put matters straight, we expected fires in the summer. This is particularly challenging because, as I said, of the weather conditions. But the season started very early on, as early as June. There were a number of fires, and that is, of course, the unusual nature of such developments, but as every year, the Ministry of the Interior and the Department of Civil Security has been getting ready for this, meaning mobilize all resources and position all these resources around the country, so that includes land as well as air resources to fight these fires, and this prepositioning of resources and means is something that we learned from 2022, and indeed we readjust these resources on a daily basis, based, of course, on the weather report, but also reports from the National Forest Office, and so we see whether the resources are appropriate, but let me just remind you that these resources have considerably increased. Just to give you a few figures, the numbers of firefighters that will come in those areas where fires have broken out. There are 51 columns of firefighters that have been set up. So, of course, that's a lot more than what we had in the past, and in particular prior to 2022, and indeed prior to that as well. So we drew the lessons from that. We increased our resources and equipment. Speaking of which, the firefighting engines, in 2022 we implemented the capacity compact that we earmarked as many as 150 million euros to support the firefighting department with mobile equipment 540 fire engines were purchased and now being deployed around the country. The total cost was 150 million euros, and then the fire departments themselves also contributed to the same tune. So we're talking about the 300 million budget, and this comes under the ministry's budget. The total budget went from 200 to from 400 to 800 million euros. So we almost doubled the budget, and all the resources allocated to the rescue operations was doubled as well. We're talking about upwards of €1 billion, and of course there's a budget issue there, but right now the resources have been allocated. So significant increase in resources, including aircraft, and I'm shocked to find comments in the media saying that we only have Canadairs. The French air fleet is quite significant. It is diversified, and the French president wanted us to have aircraft that can project water, and that is the Canadairs, and these aircraft are float planes. They can land on water, but we have other types of aircraft that can not just project water, but also fire resistant substances. And so we have, apart from the Canadairs, we have aircraft, and nobody mentions these aircraft that can carry 10,000 liters. A Dash aircraft can carry 10,000 liters, carrying both water as well as fighting substances. And we have been deploying them between 2018 and 2023. So it is wrong to say that the air fleet is not up to standards. It has, not only is it up to standards, but it's been considerably increased. And we also lease as many as 10 firefighting helicopters and 6 aircraft, the air tractor aircraft. We have 6 of those. So all told, if you add up all the resources that were acquired, the total air fleet has as many as 67 firefighting aircraft, which is of course significant. Now, we have our own aircraft, plus, as I said, the aircraft that's being leased, and that is what makes our air fleet so significant, indeed one of the largest in Europe. So instead of just looking at this or that type of aircraft or helicopter, what does count is, of course, the diversity of our air fleet. So we have an increased budget. We have more resources, not just air, but land resources as well. We have, and so in practice, and I won't be too lengthy about this, but in practical terms, is what we have in the Gironde area, in the Bordeaux area. This is unprecedented. The wildfire has been raging over the forest in the southwest, and of course it has a life of its own. It's because of the weather conditions, because of the texture of the vegetation there. This is a highly erratic behavior, a completely self-controlled fire, as it were. It was almost impossible to control it from the outside. As many as 40,000 hectares were burned down. That's a lot more than what came down in the self-same area in 2022. That was 20,000 hectares back then. Today it's 40,000. The fire has been stabilized. It's not been stopped, but it has been stabilized. But this is completely unprecedented. Indeed. And this has been commented in the media or on TV channels. Once, that was Friday night, the fire developed a pyrocumulonimbus cloud, a cloud that creates electric arcs and that projects incandescent material and goes and rises very high up in the air. This is highly unusual. We've never seen this in France. In the other continents, yes, but this is completely unprecedented in this country. And at times, that fire threatened the Bordeaux area itself. And that's being controlled and addressed, but all these resources we've been mobilizing yesterday, and unlike what I said, what was said on TV, there were only 4 Canadair aircraft. We had as many as 18 aircraft, 18 aircraft, 2,500 firefighters who were there fighting the fire in the Gironde area alone, 2,500 firefighters, and plus the local communities were involved. So we had only 600 local firefighters, and so 1,900 other fighters from other parts of the country. 1,500 military men, and would like to thank the defense minister for deploying our officers there. We also had the forest department, which brought in their own people. Some other industries were involved. The public works agency was involved, plus the farmers, as I said. And of course, this was all coordinated by, you shouldn't act alone. This was all supervised and coordinated. And all these people were working from the ground. In other words, we're creating firewalls that could be either tearing out woods to create, or trenches, or both, and you could actually start tactical fires. But the main thing, and this is why this discussion about Canadairs is pointless. They also have materials that can stop or at least slow down the fire rather than extinguishing it. We have this delaying substance. The A400M aircraft does just that. That's a substance that slows down the fire. Has been also used on the occasion. And of course, the Prime Minister and the President have been monitoring the situation. All sorts of things are being done to stabilize the situation. This is groundwork with the support of aircraft or firefighting aircraft, mostly for this substance that is that slows down the propagation of the fire. But what I'm trying to say here is that all the resources that have been deployed, we are in a position to deploy them. I mean, this, as I said, is a completely unprecedented episode. Again, 2,500 firefighters, 18 aircraft and firefighting fire engines that are, plus the farmers, plus entrepreneurs who provided their equipment, and all this has made it possible for us to address the fire. That's what I had to say by way of introduction. I don't mean to take too much time, but talking about the exceptional deployment of materials and equipment, fighting fire in the wildfires, but more specifically in the Gironde area. What I'd like to add too is the season is far from over. As I mentioned earlier on, as early as June, we knew that this was going to be a challenging season, and we certainly expect the rest of the season to remain highly challenging. And we have to expect some fatigue on the part of our firefighters, and I would like here to pay tribute to our outstanding firefighters, and we need to renew our resources, including our human resources. I'd like to thank the firefighters, our military men, the security officers, and indeed all the supporting staff, the farmers, the rescue operators. You have to remember that 200,000 people had to be evacuated and from the Bordeaux area, and some people had to be evacuated. Some needed medical care. I'd like to thank medical workers as well, and the local officials, the mayors who implemented the emergency plans. All these players were very much involved, but of course the police forces as well, because you have to remember that you have to support these evacuation operations, and then you have to secure buildings that were left evacuated, they had to be secured as well. So we've been deploying a significant amount of equipment and resources. We have to remain mobilized, and our citizens have to be very vigilant, have to remember 9 out of 10 fires have a human origin, and out of these 9, and that was mentioned this morning at the Council of Ministers, we know that if about half these human-originated fires were criminal intent, and we have 15 people that are held right now by the police because they're facing charges of arson. As was said here by Madame Branjon this morning on the news this morning, apart from criminal arson, inasmuch as until such time as the fire has been quenched in the Gironde area, please refrain from going there. There are major operations on the way there. You must not disturb them. So this is a message of caution. Thank you. Thank you. Any questions? I have a question from TF1. Earlier on, you were saying that the fire was stabilized but not set.
You were listening to the French Interior Minister Laurent Nuñez speak there on the condition of the fires, which authorities are trying to bring under control here in France. As he